Well, Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to Recovery Live, our Came to Believe Recovery's weekly live stream where we talk everything addiction and solution. We're so excited today. I got my orange shirt on already, living in the go. Our virtual retreat starts this afternoon. If you're interested, registration is still open for the second session. So mostly it would be for people in the United States, unless you want to stay up really late in the UK or in Europe. But registration's still open. We'd hate for anybody not to get a chance to hear the message that has saved so many. So virtual retreat this weekend, we just can't even believe it. It comes up on us really quickly. I think we have 60 people coming, and that's a nice number on Zoom. And we're going to be at it pretty much right after we're done with Recovery Live today. I hope everybody had a good New Year. I did. I woke up at 11:55 just out of happenstance because I was not up for any of the events for New Year's or out anywhere. And looked at my phone when I got up and just got a drink, and it said 11:55, and it didn't even occur to me that I could have turned the TV on and watched the ball drop. And I read something or did something, and it was 10 after 12. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not against the ball dropping, but I didn't see it. I guess I'm getting old for all this stuff. Anyway, today we're going to talk. I got a couple guests coming on today. And we're going to talk about a couple of interesting subjects that I'm sure affect all of you and some of you, and may not have affected you yet and may affect you pretty soon in your future. And we'd love any questions that you have. Jamie, I see you here. You're getting to be the first one on. Used to be Anna, and now it's Jamie. But I'd like to bring both of my guests on at once now, and then we can start a discussion for today. So I would like to welcome Casie Ferriello from Other Parents Like Me. Hi, Casie. How are you today?
I'm good, Tom. Thank you very much for having me again.
Yep. And I'd like to bring Alicea on.
Hello.
We all know Alicea. So we have, but we're Jersey strong today, right, Casie?
That's right. You got it.
Jersey strong, right? Poor Alicea. Two Jersey people.
It's all right.
And Cassera in the background. She's a Jersey person.
She's a Jersey girl, too.
Yeah. Yes. And so is Lisa. We're pretty Jersey heavy today. Poor Alicea. But she's got her coffee, which is decaf, right?
Yes, it is.
So disciplined.
1 month.
Anyway. 1 month, huh?
Wow, I'm impressed.
Tastes the same. It's
me and my Coke Zero.
Oh, Coke Zero. Oh, I was gonna say Coke. Oh no, you're gonna send us all over the edge, right, Alicea?
Yeah. No, Coke Zero.
But that's not what this is about. So
this is not what this is about. Very good. That was very good for you not to take the bait on that one, Alicea. We talked a lot. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that too, New Year's resolutions and how that all plays into that. I was in a meeting in New York City this week, and they were talking about resolutions, Alicea. And I know we talked about that. Well, we kind of, once you start, as you say, living in the go and living in recovery, if you're living the program we are, you really don't do New Year's resolutions, kind of don't have a place because you're supposed to be kind of keeping yourself going all the time.
Yep.
So I said to somebody at the thing, I said, I don't do them. What's your resolution? I said, well, if I got something I need to do, I just set the plan out and start it right now. I don't wait for these times. Historically, they're not very successful, people that make resolutions. But if it's what you got to do for the first time, that's why we're running this retreat this weekend, is taking advantage of those that are making these resolutions that have come off the first of the year in a bad time, which I don't know how you guys were, but I was. I got sober on the 9th of January, 17 years ago, the 10th, which is like this weekend of the year. And I couldn't stop during the holidays. So it fit me. You know, had this been available when I stopped, it would have been perfect timing. So that's part of the big reason why we have done it. And the only way we could have done it this weekend was virtually, because we couldn't get anywhere the week after New Year's to be in person. But Casey's been on before. Some of you may remember. It probably was 6 months ago that you were on.
I think so.
So why don't you, Casie runs an organization or leads an organization or is part of a leadership team of an organization called Other Parents Like Me. It's a support organization. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that does and how part of what you do certainly does address substance abuse?
Right. So Other Parents Like Me is a peer-to-peer support community for parents. And the parents are those who have kids who are struggling with mental health and or substances. And the reason that I pull substances out of that narrative of mental health is that for many of us as parents, that's a very scary piece. That is a way that mental health can kind of go sideways. And when your kid is young, which mine started it at 14, the addict brain, I hope that's okay to say,
Sure.
gets turned on very quickly, unfortunately. And so for them, for some kids, they can just try and be fine. And for my son, that was not true at all, with overdosing and suicidal ideation, lots of blaming of me, lots of shaming, running away, holes in the walls, all sorts of things. So through the path, we sent him on to various treatments. He's doing well today. He still is, I would say, in harm reduction, which is phenomenal from where he was. And he's back home living with us, but he was out of the house for about 2.5 years, really working on trying to kick his demons. And he's got a lot of demons. And that's what he used to call them, his demons. Yeah. And so I started support groups for the program he was at and saw how much it helped the kids with us starting to do work and us starting to take our part and work on ourselves. And so that's how Other Parents Like Me was born, actually during the pandemic in 2020. And then we launched officially this year. And we have 17 support groups for parents who have all types of struggles with their kids. And it's amazing how much that all meshes, no matter what the struggle is, whether it's substance use, eating disorder, or suicidal ideation, whatever, however mental health goes sideways. But for my personal experience, substance use is a big part.
And do you remind me if you have a personal, you had a thing with the substance abuse yourself?
Yeah, I am in recovery.
Outing you?
No, you're not. You're totally fine. I am in recovery since March of last year, March 7th last year. I didn't look back. And I will tell you that there were many, 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 many years of stop, start. But now something clicked for me March 7th of last year, and I've never looked back. I could be around people like I never thought that was going to be possible, whereas in the past that was not possible. So I don't know. I've heard of that kind of people, and I was always jealous of those people who kind of got there. So I got there. I don't know how I got there, but something clicked, and I was like, yeah, I'm never looking back. But Alicea, I still have my Coke Zero. I still have my vices, but my head is clear. My head is straight. It's like, I don't know if you guys have felt, it's so phenomenal to have all your brain cells. It's amazing.
The ones we didn't kill, but yeah, yes, I feel that way
exactly.
Too. I don't know how you feel. I can relate, and I don't know how you do, Alicea. I relate from the point of that my parents could have used your support groups, because I did start about when I was 12 or 13. I started in my brain. We can talk about this in a little bit. I don't know that I'd had mental illness, except that I did have ADD for sure. And that is, I guess, at an issue. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea. Nobody recognized that in the 70s, And so looking back today, it certainly had a play in that as soon as I went to the drugs and the alcohol, they certainly assuaged all this stuff that was going on. It made me, it was more than just the drinking. It did a lot of things for me. And I had no idea. So my parents could have used the support group, because back then there was no place for them to go. They wrung their hands, and didn't know what to do. And I just was off to the races, you know. Where were you on that? Or is it more your kids that you deal with, Alicia, or was it, but it's kind of both with you, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think with my situation, I was just so not connected to reality because I started drinking at 15 and had eating disorders. So I had 2 addictions heavily and just separated myself. My mom was a single mom, so she was working all the time. So I was isolated. So, and I didn't want anything to do with her. So to say like that I would want her to be in the counseling, I didn't want anything to do with her. And everything was in my way, you know? And so even if she did go to counseling, I probably wouldn't even be aware of it, sadly. And then going the other way with my kids, luckily, miracle that I have 3 boys now, 33, 26, and 21. My oldest had a drinking issue, but he's been sober now for 3 years, 4 years. And my other 2 never went down the addiction road. Because their dad raised them, for one. That's why. So luckily, I mean, I didn't have to deal with that with the kids. But yeah, I love the idea of group counseling and stuff, but then my head always goes to, but if they're not putting it into action, then it wouldn't work anyways. There's just so much in there. Yeah, but to say with my mom, I didn't want anybody in my life. There was so much. Now,
I think the difference probably was too, or you could tell me I'm wrong, is that, you know, Casie, you're trying to get your son, you know, you're making, and your mom wasn't so much with you, right, Alicia? I mean, she wasn't as concerned about.
I think she was dealing with so much of her own stuff that I didn't see. I know it now because we talk now, we're close now, but I didn't know it. And so I was just resentful. There was just so many emotions and we didn't talk about feelings and anything. So I think she was dealing with so much of her own stuff that she was so overwhelmed with working and trying to raise me. And I was a nightmare. So it's just crazy, but I thought she was the nightmare. But nah, it was me. Yeah, it was.
I love what you're sharing, Alicia. And I will say that my son was not interested in me being a part of it at all for many years. And what became important for him was to see that I started to change how I spoke to him. So that helped. And that's what so peer-to-peer support. I heard you say group counseling. We don't do counseling. It's literally just parents talking about things that have come up. It's a not directly Al-Anon because it's really just for parents, which is, you know, another 12-step version. We have acknowledged that sometimes that doesn't feel right for parents because we're like, but mine's a 16-year-old, a 19-year-old, and you're like talking about your husband or your parent, you know, and so it's a place that's for parents. And I appreciate what you shared about your mom. That's the fact that you were able to find some recovery with her, like I just like feel blessed to hear that where you guys are now. That's amazing.
So Casie, do you hear a lot? Is this the subject of a lot of the peer-to-peer meetings, is both the parent not knowing, they're overwhelmed, they don't know what to do, and they say they just can't control, the kid wants nothing to do with them, which I can see that they just want.
That can happen as well. Yeah. I would say that our parents are learning, even though they're struggling, like Alicia, you were talking about your mom, to find ways to take care of themselves, which I bet your mom was not really good at. so that they can be present in the chaos with their child and not just become this like absolute crazy people where both of you are literally screaming and calling each other names. Because I don't know about Alicea for you, but that happened between me and my son.
We just ignored each other. We were more the silent withdrawal, isolated people.
See, in my house too, there were 6 of us. Well, there still are 6 of us, but I'm the only one that went down this path. So I think it was even more baffling for my parents. I mean, they had 5 other kids that did the American dream. They did what you're supposed to. They went to high school, did well, went on to colleges, did well. Some of them, 3 or 4 years later, get married, have kids, the whole thing. Perfect. And then there's Tom, who just was off the rails. And they didn't, so there was some effort where they put time towards me, but they just couldn't figure out, I got a lot of, can't you just stop? What about your brothers and sisters? And then that didn't make me feel any better, because then I thought, why can't I? Why can't I stop? And then you just feel worse and worse when a sister goes to Smith College, a brother goes to Amherst College. They're not going to, not that there's anything wrong with county college, but they're going to top schools in the country. And Tom is drinking every day. And they would say, you're just as smart as them. Why can't you, So those are the demons I fight today, is that I lost 30 years of potential that could have had me in a whole different place. But that's a different story. But my parents could have used it. They never had any kind of counseling, Casie, or peer group or anything. There was nothing back then for them.
Right.
So my mother says she prayed every day for 30 years for me and worried every day for me for 30 years. And I didn't even think about that. It's a little something now that it's what parents do, right? You worry. Somebody could tell you don't worry, which is what kind of, right? Some of the advice we give is you got to set boundaries and you got to, and make them pay their consequences. Easier said than done, right?
Yeah. And you need support around that. You need support around having that, holding boundaries. And it's nice to have other people like to talk to as you're trying to hold boundaries with your kids. I don't know about you, Alicea. You were struggling. You sound with your kid who was struggling, and for you, I don't know how long you've been in recovery. So, for me, there's also that shame that it took me so long that basically I pushed for him to get recovery, and I didn't even get recovery for myself yet. So, yeah.
Well, it's what the old pot calling the kettle black. If you're doing it, how can you tell them not to do it?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting. I say, so when we want to talk about, we know from just being, and let me step back, and Sarah put that education is the key. Education, advocacy, learning, talking period. And there's so much more today that is accessible. There's so many different kind of groups, so much written, so much support out there. I mean, other parents like me forget about it. That there was nothing like that. I mean, even AA, which it was much more under the radar. I didn't know anybody in AA back then, but why would I, right? We're not, that's not the people I wanted to know. But we know dealing with with addiction that we're dealing with all the time. It's what I do full time. It's what Alicea does, like as her volunteer thing. We do run into the issues of mental illness, which goes along with a lot of this. And in your experience, Casie, what percentage of mental illness, how does it play in substance use and addiction? And are there types of, we were talking about this before we came on, are there afflictions, addiction, mental illness, things that people have that make them more prone to be down the substance use path?
Every single person, I'm not saying that they have mental illness, but they have something going on, something mental health wise, something that another person I worked with, who I spoken with yesterday, a neuro called, I never thought of this, but calling ADHD a neurodiversity. So your brain is wired differently. There's always something that's the reason that for the initial pickup. And then once the pickup happens, and I'm not even saying you're aware of that there's this thing until you take the substance, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, something's gone that I didn't even know was like controlling my life. So for me, I had a sexual trauma that happened when I was 3 years old. And my whole life I disassociated from it until I got into my college years, and I couldn't dissociate anymore. So what did I do? I turned to alcohol, and that did the same thing that disassociating did for me and took that away. And for my son, he's had ADHD forever. And unfortunately, and I don't know if this is the same for you, Tom, but unfortunately for him, I was not the mom who knew how to take care of a kid with ADHD. Like he broke his foot, he broke his arm like 1 year old, 2 years, like he was climbing out of the crib at 9 months. Like and so his name was always said in the house, John. And it's okay for me to say his name, by the way, because he's very open. John. So he learned that his emotions were not okay, that he was not okay because he couldn't control himself. And when he turned 14 and he discovered that drugs did for him, calmed him down, and he wasn't in trouble as much, he was off to the races. I don't know if that speaks for you guys or not, but it really did for him. It fixed that racing brain, and that racing brain, and it fixed his ability to sleep. Which is another part, is that his brain just doesn't shut down. And for me, that's why I started substances, was because I didn't want to talk about or think about my trauma in my childhood.
People will say, we've heard, there's a segment of people that will say that it's a lifestyle choice, addiction, right? You just got to get over it. That's a lifestyle choice. I would say I never chose it. I mean, I didn't know that switch when I took the drink, I didn't know the switch was going to get clicked. When I took the drink, I didn't say, I'm going to choose, because everyone around me drank. My parents, everybody drank normally. Drinking was not a problem. But when I took it, I had the same thing you did. The switch clipped, and it fixed something. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it was, but it fixed something. And then not only, it wasn't just that, I also have just the addict brain. I have the potential toward it, plus this ADD thing. So it was like a double whammy. I felt great. And that was it. And I was off to the races too. And had no idea anything. And there was no stopping. And at least for me, no stopping until I was able to find this program, which worked for me and has kept me recovered for 17 years. Was it that way with you, Alicea?
Yeah, pretty much. I relate a lot with her story because I also had sexual molestation in my past. And it's interesting how the link of that affected, and I was 4 or 5. And then I just had that I took on that identity of being afraid of men and afraid of boys. So when I hit 15 and seeing everybody else in that realm of dating and stuff, I wanted nothing to do with it. So I started drinking. So then I didn't have to think about any of it. And then I could talk, and I still have the fear of speaking. It's like still with me. And then I had the eating disorders as well. I took them both on because then I could be skinny and pretty and get the attention that I don't really want. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm supposed to do. And then I'll drink because I don't want it. And it was just a mind-boggling thing that I kept for 33 years of my life. I got rid of drinking, but kept the eating disorders. I've only been 4 years without that. And I'm still learning, and like I feel like a baby of like learning how to communicate and deal with people, and I don't know how to do it. And I'm 52 and I'm just like, I don't know how to do this. But with the steps I do. But I'm learning and I'm falling and I'm like, what? And it seems so much easier for other people. And then I think of the injury that I did to my brain. Literally, I don't want to take that as my identity, but with starving my brain and drinking my brain, it's like, is it in there? Sometimes I'm like, what is going on? And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. But through the steps, you know, I have forgiven and I see it as something that happened to me, but I don't have to act out of that anymore. I really don't. But it is in my life. So it is a thing. And you know, it just is. And sadly, there's so many women and men, but women with the same story. And my mom is one of them too. Like almost every friend I have has had something like that happen. And some of them aren't addicts, but I went down that road to try to stuff it.
Yeah.
And it was only a distraction. It didn't work, but it distracted me for 3 decades. Not a good idea.
No, I thank you, Alicea, for sharing, and it's nice to be validated that you're not alone, you know?
It's you know, when I think back to, I don't know that I had, yes. I had to face some different kinds of traumas from what my parents did. When I was younger, you get programmed by it. It's so hard to get over. When you're young, our brains get stamped very, very easily. And your program, they say what? A lot of what drives the rest of your life only happens in the first 15 years, right? 18 years. And we can find the rest of our lives trying to dial out of it because it programs us. And we're molded, and then, like you say, Alicea, but I don't have to act out of that anymore. But that's a process. First of all, you have to realize something happened to you. You can choose different, right? And then begin to grow out of it. I didn't even realize some things that happened to me until much, much later, when I had some wonderful sessions with Sue Foreman, who just joined us on our stream. And she remembers them, where some things came out that I didn't even know were things that I had been running from this programming for 20 years. And that was part of it. That was part of what had me in this too. So while I don't have this major trauma, I do identify with the idea that there was things that happened when I was a kid that I've had to deal with later. And then the drinking also helped put that at ease for the time. Let's just say hi to a couple of people. Anna is on now today. Anna's on. I see you there. She says she's in training, but she's on. Sunny's on. Hi, Sunny. Matt is on. Who else? Jamie West is on. Good. Welcome, everybody. If anybody has any questions or any comments for us or for Casie, what she does, I'm sure we'll post some links. So if people want to reach out to the organization and they want to become part of a peer group, if this is touching home with you, we certainly want to share all that with you so that you can get the support that you need too. You can. It's a tough thing, right, guys? To come out of this and then look back on it and then still kind of deal with it every day, you know, because then, right, I know that we find ourselves like we're the only ones that can help someone else because there's that identification. And we, as much as we want to sometimes just walk away, we can't. At least we can't. I can't. I got to be here to tell someone else. And that's exactly what we're going to do this afternoon, is help people with a shot at maybe getting over their demons. So we were talking about ADD a little bit, Casie, before we started, which was my thing. that I believe now was one of my big kind of, I guess, mental illness things outside of the programming and what my parents did. And they didn't know any better with whatever they did with me. They didn't understand that I had this condition and that what they did to me drove me crazy. It made me worse. They didn't understand. I don't respond the same way.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand why did I respond differently. And so the things they tried and the things they did to me with the way I was just damaged me to pieces. I couldn't take it. And they were horrible people to me because they didn't understand. Why don't you listen? And why don't you understand what I'm saying? And I feel this way and nobody gets it and nobody cares. And you're so confused at 10, 11, 12 years old. You can't figure it out.
Right.
And for me today, I mean, I'm not a parent. I would be so aware of that with a child. If I had a child, that I got to be listening a little bit and make sure, because they were not listening and I didn't know why. And I couldn't just figure it out at 12 or 13 or 14 or even 18. I couldn't just figure it out. And so I went down the road. So I don't know how much you know about ADD, anyone in the audience, but it's kind of my kind of a halfway explanation is it's a frontal lobe deficiency. So your frontal lobe is seeking stimulation all the time. So it makes you not focus. So you seem like you're over focused, but it's really the opposite. The fix for it is to stimulate the frontal lobe. So it's a backwards kind of thing, which is a double whammy for then the addict, because that is also stuff that makes us, that opioid type things. So my brain is trying to find focus. I can't focus on everything. And then alcohol did it, helped massage it. It gave it some stimulation. And so did then cocaine and some other things. I never liked the downers. We called them downers back in the day. Alicia, right? They were downers. Quaaludes, which are gone, apparently. I don't know. I never took one. None of that stuff worked for me. Downers, none of that stuff. That I had some friends and people I knew in our gangs took all that stuff. No, I wanted the speed, the Black Beauties, the Yellow Jackets, all these things that don't exist anymore either. But we took all that, and that made me feel good. But had anybody known, I think, back then, and had diagnosed me, maybe somebody could have said, hey, you better watch that kid because he's got risk factors, I guess you'd call it. And it took me out as part of what else took me. Do you see that as is that one of the bigger things, Casie, when you're dealing with parents?
Yeah, it's learning how to communicate and accept the person and the child where they are at is a big part of what we trying to do, is to allow that your child is actually okay to be who they are and that they're navigating it as well. And yeah, you're not going to be perfect because that's just impossible. Progress, not perfection, right? And so, continuing to try to learn and how to communicate. And I'll share because unfortunately, I am one of the significant traumas for my son because of his ADHD. When he was 3 and 4 years old, the thing that I was taught by an occupational therapist was something called TACO, where when that out of controlness came out of the way, and I see Sue in there, she probably has heard of this and knows of this, we'd wrap him in a blanket when he was angry or upset or out of control with his emotions, and you'd wrap him in a blanket and hold him to help him, we thought, to center him. What he came away with was that my emotions are not okay and that I'm not okay. So for him, like I said, I had my core thing at 3 years old. His was a core thing, and I was told to do it. That's what I was told. So even like you never even know, Tom, what your parents may have been told of how to help you with your ADHD. So even when you have a professional tell you what to do, it doesn't mean that it's always the perfect path. And that's really that's a hard thing, I think.
Oh yeah.
In life to learn that. So yeah, trauma. I saw what Sue was saying. What that ADHD has neglect, trauma, and criticism in early childhood, and to we can beat ourselves up as parents once you realize and think those things through and go, oh no.
Right.
I was told to do those things. Yeah.
Are there doctors now or therapists now that see that as not a good thing, and now they say instead of that, like jump up and down with him, or
exactly,
or is that what you're supposed to do?
Yeah,
or just let them go.
Let them go. Let them have their emotions. Let them have yeah. Instead we ended up suppressing, and Tom. Suppressing is not okay. Is not really ideal for a person with that frontal lobe going. Like, can you imagine? Like, like telling that your frontal lobe and your lizard brain, no, I'm sorry, you can't do any of that stuff. Like,
yeah.
Well, still today, I mean, we have to fix that. And I mean, Sue knows so much about it, but they say today a kid with ADD is set up for failure in the classroom situation of the world is put in that box and told, here's your schedule. I often tell this story when I got into college and I was going, if you said to me, Tom, write the paper, you have to write a paper, write it next Friday at 5 p.m. I would tell you, I don't know. I might be able to do it and I might not. If you say, Tom, write the paper next week, sometime next week, I just couldn't make myself focus except for certain, we learn now. Now I know I'm a morning person. When I have things like that, my brain is focused. I can do it in the morning. So early morning, I do that. But my friend who I went to school with, if I said to him, he says, I'm going to write my paper next Friday at 5. I go, how do you know? And he and it wasn't a quality thing at all. I could write papers that were every bit as good as his. Some of mine were better. Some of his were better. It didn't have anything to do with that. It had to do with how we did it. So I think today too, these kids in classrooms, when they want to run around, they need to be let to run around, right? And then come back in the classroom. There's got to be a different way of matching where they're not, it's not wrong or bad. I know they say some of the greatest generals and people that like the people with ADD were the ones who survived back in the hundreds of years ago because they had I don't know, right?
Do you know Simon Sinek, you guys? By any chance? He's on YouTube and all over, and a great speaker. And he says his ADD is actually a superpower. And he talks about it like you can get super focused once you can kind of know yourself. And he says it shouldn't be looked down upon. It's a superpower.
Yes.
And he's just brilliant in helping people like see it as a strength. Because there's always an upside to, all our stuff, even me being an introvert or whatever, the negative stuff. But I'm a great listener. I could write. You tell me to do something, I'll do it. There's always a upside to us.
Well, I've heard the superpower thing too. I've seen things written saying ADD is a gift, not we've identified it. And when you put the person in a box like that, that's what makes it look like a bad thing. I get the hyper focus too. Like when I play guitar, I love it. I just massage my brain different ways now.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's my thing. If I'll be working along here and I just can't do it anymore, I get up and play guitar, and sometimes it's an hour later because we get super. I just forget where I am because you get but it's so wonderful because I get I agree in experience. I can be really creative, a creative level. I'm not even, and that's a tough thing. I'm up and down. My highs are really high. And my lows aren't nearly as low as they used to be. I know how to ride through them, and I don't need drugs or alcohol for any of it anymore.
So
But
for my son, his replacement is he's works out.
Mm.
That is like, and I mean, like he's like he's like super ripped. It's really like so like impressive, and he hyper focuses on the regimen. In fact, he is getting his personal training certification. He's working on that right now. So he's found he's taken that power and what he's learned in his path, and is navigating through. And the other part that I think is so brilliant that he shared with me recently is like, this is my path. This is where I'm going. As he's in harm reduction, he goes, I will not be using in 5 years because I know that that's not something I want to do. And this is how I'm getting there. And I'm choosing it and I'm taking control. And just like he comes away from like working out. Like, I don't know if you guys, I mean, Alicea, you like nodded and you said all this. So I'm assuming you work out.
You're speaking our language.
Oh, good. You love, like, that is his replacement. Like, he gets that same amazing high. And meditation. I saw someone said meditation. Yes. He loves meditation.
Well, I went down that road. I became a trainer too.
Me too.
I couldn't sit at a desk. For 20 years, I was in the fitness industry.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
And I work out every single day. You take my workout away, that's a problem. But this is how we manage it. These are the healthy ways. People will say we overdo it, maybe Alicea and I, but we don't. We don't.
Well,
they're just all
it was
wrong.
one of my addictions, but they're I've moderated now.
Isn't it interesting how these same kind of things, but that's where that brain works the best. I could talk to people and be in a gym, and all this stimulation in the gym was calming to me. I loved it. And today people will say to me, I am never calmer than I'm on the last rep of the hardest thing I'm doing. And people don't get that, but I am never calmer. I want that it's not a negative strain. And I bet your son would totally get that.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah.
So you're going to say something, Alicea?
Is your son looking into also lifestyle changes of like what he's eating and nutrition?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because Chris Palmer and Georgia Ede, does he know those two?
Chris Palmer and
Georgia Ede are big on the mental health and keto and lower carb and getting rid of the processed food and carnivore. I've been carnivore for 2 years, and mental illness is like, it's like kind of not even a thing for people with schizophrenia, OCD, and it's like gone with food changes.
Yeah, he's done significant
it's a thing.
Food changes.
And it's incredible. So we don't always need meds. We could eat the right food, the human diet, and we could be fixed.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Hit the gym. Right.
Yeah.
And go to the gym. Yeah. But food is number one. You can go to the gym and eat crap and feel like crap.
Yeah.
And look like crap.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up my caffeine though, Alicea. Sorry.
Oh no.
No, that's another deal. That's a whole other live stream.
My son has given up caffeine too. He's right there with you. He's given up caffeine. He's given up anything, cow milk, any of that stuff. And he is on the carnivore path.
See?
So am I. I'm more like that.
Chris Palmer. You would like Chris Palmer.
So Sunny May says less coffee. Are you saying less coffee, Sunny? Like, are you crazy, less coffee? Or are you doing that? Tell us what you mean by less coffee. She like saying, oh my gosh.
Yeah. What are you talking about, you people?
Yeah, less coffee. And I miss Anna had a comment at the top. Absolutely right. What are you talking about? Are you crazy? So Anna's going to join the band. She plays tambourine, she said. So I just need a drummer and a bass player and somebody that can sing. I'd love to get the band. Here's my problem with the band. I can't play at 9 o'clock at night. You know, when people go to, you ever go to see a band? They don't play at 5 in the afternoon.
No.
But then I found people like the music that I play would be things that all of us would like. We do want to go at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's very interesting. Anyway, great conversation today, guys. I mean, we could be on here now because we get rolling here for the next 3 hours talking about this.
Yeah.
And I know offline we could keep going, and Alicia and I do keep going about all this, actually. So I want to thank you guys for being there. We're going to wrap it up a little bit early today because Alicia and I are off to get the virtual retreat going. Casie, I want to thank you so much for coming. It's such an important thing for us all to be talking about this. So many people would listen to these conversations and they're like, you people talk so openly about all this stuff. And aren't you worried what people think and stuff? And I'm like, not really.
Nope.
No.
I don't care. I mean, what I want is someone to come up to me and say, oh, I have that too. And then we can help.
Exactly.
We're not talking, nobody knows.
Yeah. And someone asked what we about us. You just go to oplm.com, other parents like me, oplm.com if you want to check out if you're a parent and can need some extra support.
And it's nationwide, right? Anybody, or really worldwide, if you can fit into the time zone of the thing, because we have lots of viewers from the UK that are on here too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's a great thing that you're doing. So again, I want to thank you, Casie, for coming on. Alicia, thank you for coming on, and we will see you guys. We'll see Alicia in about an hour, and Casie, we definitely want to have you back again. We'll talk to Cassandra.
I love
We'll you back.
I love meeting Alicia. Alicia, it was great meeting you today.
And great. All right, guys. Well, have a great weekend. We're off to work, saving some people, giving that message out. And Casie, have a great weekend.
Thank
you. We'll see the rest of you next week on the 13th at 12 noon Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock if you're in the UK. Join us on Recovery Live, where we talk everything addiction and have these wonderful conversations like we had today. It's not just the same old stuff. So everybody have a great weekend. Peace.